Good day, everyone. I am Philip James Texon from Section 6, and today I'll be presenting on shared writing scaffold. Specifically, we'll look into the structure of a strong proposal, the rhetorical moves that make a proposal persuasive, and the importance of field-specific language. This topic is highly relevant to us as graduate students because whether we're writing proposals for class or for actual research funding, we need to present our work in a way that is clear, convincing, and academically sound. For today's session, we have three main objectives. First, identify the key sections of a strong research proposal and their functions. Second, explain the rhetorical moves used to persuade readers of a proposal's merit. And lastly, recognize examples of field-specific language in different academic disciplines. To start with, let's define what a writing scaffold is. A scaffold acts like a guide or framework that helps writers organize their thoughts and present them in a logical manner. When applied to research proposals, scaffolds make sure that ideas are connected, that we follow the conventions expected in our discipline, and that there is consistency between our objectives, our methodology, and our expected results. Without structure, proposals can easily become confusing or incomplete, which lowers the chances of approval. As Wales and Feek point out, good academic writing is not just about being organized. It must also be strategic. In other words, it's not enough to have the sections present. They must work together to persuade the reader of the study's value. Moving on, the first part of a strong research proposal is the title page. This may seem very basic, but it sets the tone of the whole paper. A good research title should be clear and concise, and it should reflect both the variables being studied and the population involved. For example, instead of writing just a study on grammar, a stronger title would be The Effect of Micro-Learning Modules on Grammar Retention Among Senior High School Students. Aside from the title, the page must also include the researcher's name, the institution, and the date. This makes the document formal and complete. Second, the abstract. It is a summary of the entire proposal that is usually between 150 and 250 words. It gives the readers a quick overview of the problem being addressed, the objectives of the study, the methodology to be used, and the expected results. While the abstract appears at the beginning of the proposal, it is usually written last, because by then the researcher has already finalized all the sections. Now think of the abstract as a snapshot. It doesn't go into too much detail, but it provides enough information for the reader to understand what the study is about. Next is the introduction. This is where you set the stage for your proposal. It usually starts with the background of the study, which provides context and explains why the topic is relevant today. Now, after setting that context, you move on to the statement of the problem, where you identify the specific issue or gap in knowledge that your research intends to address. Finally, you end the introduction with your research questions. These should be clear, answerable, and aligned with your objectives. A well-written introduction gives readers confidence that the study is both important and feasible. After the introduction is a review of related literature, or RRL. Now, this is not just a summary of past studies, it's a way of showing where your study fits into the bigger picture. You begin by discussing existing research that connects to your topic, then explain how those studies are similar to or different from your own. The most crucial part is the ending, where you highlight the gap, the area that has not yet been studied, or the questions that remain unanswered. Now, this gap is the justification for why your research is necessary. Without a clear gap, your study may seem repetitive or unnecessary. After the RRL is the theoretical and conceptual framework. These are the theories that guide your study and the conceptual map showing relationships between variables. Now, in this section, you anchor your study on existing theories. The theoretical framework explains which theories or models support your research. Now, an example of this is that in a study about microlearning, cognitive load theory could serve as the theoretical basis. Alongside theory is the conceptual framework, which is also necessary in your study. This is usually represented in a diagram where you show the relationships among your variables, such as independent, dependent, and even moderating variables. Now, this framework makes your study systematic and allows the readers to see how your research will unfold logically. Next is the rationale or significance of the study. Now, this part answers the question, why does this research matter? Here, you explain the relevance and usefulness of your study. You should also identify the stakeholders who will benefit from your research, such as students, teachers, administrators, policymakers, or even the local community. Finally, you should emphasize the contributions your study will make to the field, whether that's filling a knowledge gap, providing new teaching strategies, or influencing policy. Now, this section makes your research meaningful beyond your own academic requirement. Next is the objectives of the study. The objectives of the study guide everything that follows. The general objective is the broad aim, usually phrased as to determine, to investigate, or to assess. Specific objectives, on the other hand, break down the general objective into smaller, measurable goals. For example, if your general objective is to evaluate the effect of microlearning on grammar retention, your specific objectives should include measuring retention scores, comparing results between groups, and analyzing students' attitude toward microlearning. Now, the important thing is that your objectives must be realistic and achievable within the time frame and the resources of your study. Next, we have the methodology. Now, the methodology is the heart of your proposal because it shows how the study will be carried out. First, that you have to do is to specify the research design, whether it's qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods. Next, you describe your participants, including how many they are and how you select them. Then, you identify the instruments that you will use, such as tests, questionnaires, or interview guides. After that, you explain your data collection procedures, how and when you will gather the information. You also need to include your data analysis plan, whether that's using statistical tests or thematic analysis. And lastly, don't forget ethical considerations. You have to show how you will protect your participants through informed consent, confidentiality, and proper handling of their data. Now, this section must be detailed because it proves that your study is both feasible and ethical. Now, the last parts of the proposals are practical but equally important. Now, a work plan or timeline, often presented in a Gantt chart, shows when each activity will be done. Now, this assures reviewers that your study is well planned and doable. The budget or resources plan lists the estimated costs and resources that you will need, such as materials, transportation, software, or printing. The references section provide credibility by acknowledging all the sources that you used, and they should follow the correct citation style. And lastly, the appendices, which include supporting documents like copies of your instruments, consent forms, or supplementary materials. Now, these sections demonstrate your transparency and preparedness as a researcher. Now that we have discussed the structure of a strong research proposal, let us proceed with rhetorical moves that would make your proposal persuasive. Now, what are rhetorical moves? These are strategies that we use to make our proposals persuasive. According to Swale's Carr's model, the first move is establishing territory, where you introduce the topic and explain its importance. The second is identifying a niche, which means pointing out what is missing in existing studies. The third is occupying that niche, where you show how your research will fill the gap. The fourth is announcing your expected outcomes, what benefits or results your study will provide. And finally, the fifth move is briefly stating your methodological approach. Now, these rhetorical moves make the proposal flow smoothly and convince reviewers that your study is worth doing. Now that we are done with the rhetorical moves, let us proceed with the discussion on field-specific language. Now, every academic field has its own specialized vocabulary, And using this language properly shows that you are knowledgeable in your discipline. Now, for example, in education, we use terms like pedagogical approach or curriculum alignment. In business, you might encounter terms like return on investment or ROI or market segmentation. In health sciences, you'll see terms like morbidity rate or randomized control trial. And using the correct field specific language really increases your credibility and helps readers trust that your work is grounded in established scholarship. However, it is also important to use these terms accurately and also in the right context. Now, here's a sample checklist for writing a proposal section. This checklist can serve as a guide whenever you are writing or revising your proposal. Ask yourself, first, is the purpose of this section clear? Have I addressed a gap in the literature? Am I using the right terminology for my field? Is the structure logical? Are my objectives specific and measurable? Are my references updated and credible? And finally, does each section connect smoothly to the next? By answering these questions, you can easily identify weaknesses in your draft and improve them before your submission. And now to wrap up, let's remember these 4 points. First, proposals with good structure are more likely to be approved. Second, rhetorical moves make your argument persuasive and compelling. Third, using the correct field-specific language shows that you are an expert in your area. And lastly, having a scaffold helps you stay organized, focused, and consistent throughout the writing process. These elements, when combined, make your proposal not only complete, but also convincing. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I hope this discussion has helped you see how scaffolds, structure, rhetorical moves, and field-specific language all come together to make a strong research proposal. Thank you so much, and God bless.